This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I want to go back to Mr. Brooks, actually, and you referenced the number of units that the CMHC says we need to get built by 2030 to restore affordability. It's a crazy number, and certainly at least double a year what we would have to do than the best year we've ever had. Can you give us some thoughts on, I mean, you know, how corporations are treated in terms of taxes and incentives and all that kind of stuff are one thing, but the physical act of building that many units, how are we going to do it?
That's the toughest question I've had so far through you, Mr. Chair. How are we going to do it? Here's the problem. We don't have enough manpower in this country to double production of housing in the period that we're allotted. We need to tweak our immigration system to bring in a lot more skilled labor and not just simply reward economic immigrants. We need to get into the high schools and tell our younger folk that a trade is a good career, and much more of them should be pursuing that career, because so many in the labor pool right now are boomers like myself, who will be retiring soon. So that's another barrier. Look, 2030 is 7 years away. I mentioned earlier it takes 5 years to get approvals in a lot of cities in Canada. Even if we were to start right now with a rezoning application or a site plan approval application or whatever it is, it takes so long to get through some planning departments. We really need to focus on speed. And we've always said in our industry, we need as-of-right zoning. When I started my career in the 80s, we had as-of-right zoning. You could put up an apartment building, just go in and apply for your building permit. As long as you comply with the building code, you're building as-of-right. Maybe you do it, look for a minor variance to close in the balconies. That was it in the 80s. Now, everything is a craft. Everything has to go through series and series of meetings. So those are two.
So I want to elaborate a little more on that. Clearly, all levels of government has skin in the game and have some responsibilities here, and municipalities are definitely on the leading edge of this, the front lines of the housing crisis and the housing situation, and a lot of the solutions. If there was some more consistency and things were easier in terms of the municipal approvals process, and some more certainty, investment likes certainty, right? Could you comment that? Do you think there's any sort of innovations that we might see in the construction industry that would make the construction process faster if there was some level of certainty in the process that made those investments pay off?
I'd love to see a modular construction industry in Canada. If we were able to build a big modular construction housing plant near major market and have all the builders commit to buy from that modular housing company, that would be a great way to speed up construction. We don't have such an industry yet in Canada, and I'm not sure we have the scale yet unless we did aggregate buying. But I would love to see that. Other initiatives are cross-laminated timber. You know, CLT buildings go up much quicker. They're much greener. And that's another possible innovation.
Could you speak as well, too, to the concept of one of the things we've talked a lot about, the governing party, and certainly our party has talked a lot about the concept of unloading underutilized federal buildings. I know that the conversion of office space to residential space can be difficult and doesn't always make sense in terms of affordability. But what about and things like free land? There are other options out there, you know, and particularly in larger centers. I'm thinking that might be an option there. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely, I think that is an option. I know that in the City of Toronto, they have an agency who has been looking to lever the city's vacant and underused land. I think federally, you have Canada Lands Corporation, which is charged with disposing of excess surplus lands. I'm thinking of Downsview Airport. There's a massive site at the end of a subway that could have a lot of housing on it. But there's got to be other examples around the country where there's big federal land sites that could be used.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I think I'm out of time anyhow. Thank you.
A few seconds, but thank you, Mr. Aitchison.
I guess I'll be honest, it's
no surprise to me that at committee today we have some large corporate landlords who are receiving preferential tax treatment, and they're telling us they want to keep that. So I'd like to ask a question of Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Sullivan, as you might know, I've been joining others in calling for real estate investment trusts simply to be taxed as other for-profit corporate landlords already are, and to use those funds to build more of the affordable supply of housing that we need. And this isn't about villainizing any one group. It's about ensuring tax fairness across the board and using every tool available to build the affordable housing we need. In recent years, we know that corporate financial landlords have increased their stock up to 20% of Canada's rental stock. At the same time, over the last 10 years, we've lost 830,000 units of affordable rental units. So I guess my question to you, to Mr. Sullivan, do you feel there's any justification for maintaining corporate tax exemptions for REITs?
Short answer.
Mr. Brooks mentioned an interest in maybe adapting the American low-income tax credit program into a Canadian context. This is the kind of opportunity where tax incentives are coupled with actual public benefit. So, if there's a tax break, what does society get in return for it? And in this case, it could be investment in affordable housing. So I think there's a lot of will in the private sector to address this problem, but I think we need to make sure that we're targeting those incentives toward the core of the problem, which is affordability. The other witness mentioned the floor of $1,700 to build a new apartment. That's actually the minimum level of affordability for the median income in Canada. So half of all people in the country cannot afford any rent higher than that. Good luck finding a $1,700 apartment in any urban center in the country right now.
Thank you.
Very quickly then, I'll ask Mr. Brooks around my question. How long do I have?
2 minutes.
Okay, I'll ask a question around basically what was obvious to me that was coming as I was sitting in my city councillor chair. So I'm going to ask you, did the private market see this disaster happening in regards to the financialization of housing for people and corporations that, for people and corporations that had the money that could benefit from it to invest in housing? We saw these condos being built at exponential speed. We saw the interest rates being super, super low, and people of wealth and corporations came forward and bought those homes. Did your realm, your organization, you yourself see this disaster coming and see that this was going to be a crisis in our communities of homelessness? And did you do anything to offset those realities that have transpired on the street?
Thank you, Mr. L, through the chair. Did we foresee this coming? No. I don't represent the condo builders. That's a separate group and market from our members. We represent people who build long-term income-producing property. We respond to market demand. We're permitted to do so across the country. Did we expect immigration to go to 1 million people? No. I mean, it spiked. Did we expect 800,000 students to come into Canada? No. And my colleague, Mr. Moffat, will talk about the lack of student residences across this country as being part of the issue. So no, we didn't. The job of the market is to respond to demand, and we're trying to catch up with that demand as quickly as we can, but it's, as I mentioned, a slow process, and right now it's difficult.
Thank you.
Thank you.